And we're recording. Alright, guys. Welcome to the 1.1 little overview for all the characters, light cones, and other things. We do have multiple theory crafters with me. We have Mono.
Right here.
Yep, we have Sitri.
Hi.
We have Eris.
Hello.
And we have... That's every... No, just kidding. We have Sin.
Hello.
Alright, so you guys are like the bigger experts here. I'm just here just showing my face and like giving you the little bit of a visual thing. So if you guys really want to see a specific screen, then tell me, then I'll like literally move on to that one for you guys. But first of all, let's actually go with the light cones, because the light cones is the one in this page we can get a direct impression from. We'll get onto the things first. So we just talked about it. We just talked like literally 1 minute ago. But the light cone has an effect hit rate of 24%, and where it deals damage to enemy with 3 or more debuffs, there's an increased crit rate. And when the user of this light cone uses basic attack skill or ultimate, there's a 100% base chance to implement ether code on a random target that does not have it yet, and targets with the ether code gets 12% increased damage for 1 turn. It's pretty damn good.
Okay. So, first off, in this entire light cone, the two things that I think everyone should pay attention to is effect hit rate and the Easter code. She's a nihility, and she mainly functions as a debuffer, so having damage on her is nice, but usually debuffers do not have a chance to build a lot of damage stats. Usually with debuffers, you want a lot of speed on them so they can maintain good uptime on their debuffs. They want HP for survivability, and they want effect hit rate so they can actually hit their debuffs. So those are the two most important things. Having 12% crit rate is nice. It's a lot of... That is a high value, but I would not pay attention much to that since her base damage I do not think would be that high. However, having effect hit rate is really nice. If you guys do not know, when enemies are... If you play in the higher Memory of Chaos floors, you would notice that it's really hard to hit debuffs because enemies up there have 40 to 50% effect resistance. So even if you have like 120% base chance of hitting a debuff, you're actually only hitting it around 70 to 60% of the time. So you actually want effect hit rate even on abilities that have 100% base chance to bring it closer to around 80-90% for stability. Ether code, not much to say here, is really good. 12% increased damage here is vulnerability applied to the enemy, so it doesn't really scale with your damage percent or your crit. So you basically get a 12% flat increase. And that's really high value. The only thing that this shares with, I presume, is wealth currently. And yeah, that's my take on this light cone. Very good, nothing overly broken. I would just say it's good.
Anyone else want to add on to that?
Yeah, there's not really much to say here. This is just a generally good Nihility light cone. We'll have to see if it competes with Welts, but it's hard to go wrong with this, especially like, even if you play like Sampo or Welts. It's just good.
Another thing is, do we have a light cone, a Nihility light cone list? Because I do want to. It's good to run over the 4-star options so people know. Can you bring it up on stream, X?
Give me 1 second.
Yeah. Because whenever you think about rolling a 5-star light cone, unless you roll it for like, yeah, this is a character I really like, and I want the signature light cone with them, right? A really important thing to consider is what are your other 4-star options that are much easier to obtain, and some are even free.
Well, actually, before we get to the rest of the Nihility, there's actually one other light cone that we can look in before that, and which is the free-to-play, the free light cone we get for...
Oh yeah, let's look at tutorial mission.
Yeah, let's look at tutorial mission. So, this is something you get for free when you do the event before the tutorial missions start. And it increases the wearer's effect hit rate by 20% when the wearer attacks. When the wearer attacks enemies that have reduced defense, regenerates 4 energy. Okay, that's good though. That's actually low-key very good. The only shitty part is like you have to work with the reduced defense, but
Yep. So 20% effective rate, really nice to have. Yes. For energy, I would like to see how impactful her ult is and how much energy and like it really. So energy generation works in thresholds. If there's on breakpoints, if it can, it having 4 more energy per attack helps you use 1 more normal attack and not your skills. You actually have more SP for your DPS to use. Very nice. If it actually reduces the amount of actions you need to take before you can ult again, even better.
wait.
So it's really dependent on what is her actual energy, how much she regenerates. But for energy per attack, I would assume at least you can maintain
Wait.
very 100% uptime on her ult.
Yeah, but like we also have to remember that this is a superimposition 1.
That is
Yeah, that was gonna be my question.
wait,
Are
the
we
free
going
ones
to have
always get to S5, right? Are we sure?
Yeah, it's
it's
always
S5?
S5.
Okay,
for free.
so we don't know the scaling, so let's just not talk about too much.
Oh, yeah, let's
it
not
could
talk
go to
about scaling.
30%, it could go to 40%. We won't know until we get our hands on it. So
Either way, that is a big jump, though.
yeah,
That's
at a baseline, it's good.
I would prefer if you can reduce the amount of actions, you can maintain 100% uptime on your ult, but just keeping her SP positive would also be very good. For those who don't understand, SP positive means that in a long rotation, that character's spend generates more SP than they spend. So your DPS has more SP to use. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and about the Nihility light cones. The only other 5-star that we have is In the Name of the World right now, which should be pretty competitive with this. But other than that, there's just the 4-star and 3-star options, and I'll be honest, guys, there's not a whole lot going on here.
I don't think In the Name of the World is that good for Solo Wolf because
skill. It's only on skill.
you have to kind of
It's
hit
only
your
on
E as
skill.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
has her talent, her buck. She has a skill that she has to hit to apply weakness, and to apply like the defense threat, and then her ult as well. There are a lot. She has a lot of percentage chances that you have to hit.
Yeah.
Another thing is like okay, so here's a little bit of a correction. It's like the 4-star Nihility cones are not bad per se, but they're just very pertaining to a certain like their passive is literally aligned for the character that it's meant for, and Silver Wolf literally does not apply to like any of these things here.
I think Resolution shines as Pearls of Sweat is a very good light cone, assuming you just get effective rate somewhere else, like your
Yeah.
body.
I mean, you
It's
can
a
still
very
like
good
you can still
Yeah,
unify
anyways,
it here
like-
somewhere, but you know.
I think
yeah, you're going to be
it's
dedicating a lot.
fine to talk a little bit about these, but we should probably get back on topic onto the 1.1 stuff in
Oh yeah,
particular.
yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So if
So-
we could take a quick look at Luocha's light cone. I mean,
Okay.
base level, this light cone, it's good. It's especially since
Hold
we
on.
get it for free. Effect hit rate is good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Increase the
So
wear attack by 24.
yeah. Okay. So let's do Echoes of the Coffin, which is the is Laucha or Locha? I don't. Okay.
Luocha.
Locha. Okay.
Slocha.
Increases the wearer's attack by 24%. After the wearer uses ultimate, all allies gain 12 speed for 1 turn. Additionally, for each different enemy the wearer attacks regenerate 3 energy. Each attack can regenerate energy in this way up to 3 times. Wait, hold on. Increases wearer attack by
No.
20%. That kind of implies that Locha scales on
Yes.
attack.
Attack. Yeah, I would assume he scales on attack then.
Yeah, he did in CBT, and it doesn't seem like they've changed that. So this is good.
Mm-hmm. And
The speed wise, I know like 12, all allies 12 speed 1 turn sounds nice, but I would not put too much weighting on that. It really depends on how many ults you actually get off, and usually with supports you do not get that many ults off as DPS. it's nice. Like, think of it as you get like a few more actions until I would say 2 to 3 more actions as a team, not even per character, with 12 speed on everyone. That's what I would say. Energy wise, pretty nice, but again, not needed.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a super good cone.
But we also have to remember that there is an abundance code that has freaking Locha in it, and it's the where is it? Perfect timing.
Can you bring that one up?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
the
is.
gotcha one, it gives effect resist rate, and then it gives you bonus healing from the amount of
And
effect
you
resist
know
rate
that
you
like
have.
you would have a lot of effect rest, right?
Yeah.
That's what we know.
Yeah.
So this is a really good one as well. Which is, with healers, you want to make sure they do not get crowd controlled. If they
Right.
get crowd controlled,
You're fucked.
your rotation can get really screwed.
Yeah.
So this is a very good option. Even without this, can you go to Quid Pro Quo? It's a free-to-play one.
Yeah.
and
Hold on, let me
Quid
get
Pro
it
is
to you.
yeah.
Quid pro quo.
Yeah, this is a fantastic light cone. It just gives you a stupid amount of energy. Hard to control, but when it's like, what is it, 8 to 16, it's just like
Unlike anyone, that's great. Yep.
10% to like 20% of a ultimate is crazy. So it's like, are you really going to be going to hard pity on an abundance light cone for Luocha? I don't think so.
I wouldn't.
I would not. I would not. I would stick with Quid Pro Quo. If you have perfect timing, use it on him. But I would not recommend rolling his light cone.
Fair enough.
Save your save your shades or something else.
All right. That's it for light cones. Anything you guys want to say before we get onto the actual banners? And when banners come, we're gonna let Sin talk because Sin
Yep.
has. Sin,
I think I'm done with the light cone.
yeah. Then we're gonna. Okay. All right, guys. If you're ready, let's go. Let's go head into the KQM kitchen and let's see what Sin has been cooking up. Where can I find the banner details? Hold on. Let me just give me uno segundo.
Yeah, you're probably gonna have to clip them from the video, but
Yeah, let's get it from the video. It's much better if we do
but
that.
for the most part, I'm just gonna be going over each individual character, talking a little bit about like their kind of free-to-play role value, because that's gonna be the the general, or like not just free to play, but like low spender value, just because that's going to be what most people are going to be concerned about.
Give me 1 second.
And then
just a little bit more. Okay.
Yeah.
See. God. Okay. Here we go. Here we not go. Here we go. Okay. So contract 0, Silver Wolf's banner will have Dan Hong, Asta, and Serval as your 4-star. And that's it.
Yeah, so just looking at these, so I'm going to be mostly looking at like, okay, is there value in their early 4-star Eidolons? And I mean, we can start with Dunheng. So the big one for him is his E1 is pretty good if you want to pull it up in game. I don't know if you have the game open.
I do.
Awesome. Yeah, so his E1 just gives 12% crit rate, I believe, against enemies that are above 50% health, which is just at a baseline good. It just basically guarantees that your first combo is always just going to have an extra 12% crit rate, which is just good. But the main value from his early Eidolons is going to be from his E2, which it reduces his talent cooldown by 1 turn. His talent cooldown has a base cooldown of 2 turns without Eidolons. And what it does is it basically, whenever he's targeted by any ally skill or ultimate or anything, it gives him additional wind res penetration. And that's really good because it basically acts as a separate multiplier, because it's not like, attack and crit and damage percent where it can get overly saturated. We don't have a lot of sources of res penetration. So having that have better uptime by reducing the cooldown to 1 turn is just really good for his damage. So that's really good value for him if you like him. Also, Dan Hung is just, he's a pretty good free-to-play win DPS, so that's always good to have. I can move on to Asta now. Asta has a couple constellations that are pretty impactful. Some early and then some not so early. In terms of the early ones, her E2 is just very good for kind of keeping her buff uptime. Her E1 is also good. It gives her a little extra energy because she gets one more hit from her skill. Also increases the amounts of stacks she can potentially get. But basically, she buffs all of the allies' attack by a certain amount depending on how many stacks she has. She gets stacks from hitting enemies more if they have fire weakness. The only problem is in her base kit, like after her second turn, the stacks reduce by 3. Which means by the time you get to her on her second turn, you're starting to lose those buff stacks, which means to keep those up, usually you'd have to keep using your skill, which, that's a lot of SP that's being used on a support character that you might not always want to be using her skill on. And what her E2 lets her do is when she uses her ultimate, the charging stacks don't reduce in the next turn, meaning she doesn't need to again use skill for the next turn. So it saves you 1 SP for the next turn, potentially. And also just lets you get some more extended setups across 2 turns, keeping the buff. So that's really good. But her really kind of broken Eidolon is E4. And what that does is increases her energy regeneration rate by 15% when she has 2 or more charging stacks. And because her charging stacks are a lot easier to kind of keep uptime on, especially with E2, she basically will almost always, or she'll have good uptime on this 15% energy regen rate, which lets you kind of play her differently, where she gets ults a lot more, which means you can build teams around having that speed buff from her ult a lot more. So it's just really, really good. And I mean, E4, if you're free to play and you have a limited amount of pools, you might not necessarily be able to grab E4, but if you can at least get E1 and E2, that's already
that's
a really good deal.
Huge.
Yes. So moving on to Serval now. So Serval also has some.
There she is. There we go. Sorry.
Yeah, really good early constellations for her. Her E1's fine, I guess. I mean, it's just a little extra splash damage basically every time she basic attacks, which she should be doing a decent amount. But it's her E2 that is the main difference maker. Every time she triggers her talent, which is when she attacks a shocked enemy and it regenerates 4 energy for her, which is a big deal because it lets her do certain rotations, kind of like she can do skill, ult, into 3 basic attacks. And because each of those basic attacks are going to be triggering her talent, that's basically 12 extra energy that is going to be generated for her, which lets you actually run that rotation. Because normally that rotation, I think, only generates enough energy that you're missing 5, and this Eidolon alone already makes up for that missing energy, so it just becomes a consistent rotation. So that's really good. Her later Eidolons they're okay. Like E4 is good sometimes if if your skill doesn't apply shocked and you need your ultimate too, and her E6 is kind of just a little more personal damage, which can sometimes matter.
It's
not bad, but
it's not necessary.
It's not something where you need to have her E6, right?
Right.
And so those are my thoughts on the 4 stars. They all have pretty decent early Eidolons. So my view, this is like a really good value for 4 stars on the banner.
Mm-hmm.
But now we can talk about Silver Wolf, which is what most people are probably wondering about. So it's kind of a mixed bag, my thoughts on her right now. So she is a very unique debuffer package. She has a lot of different, she has a lot of debuffs on a lot of different things, and it seems like she's potentially very good, but I think my main worry is we need to see her kit. We need to see the actual numbers. On her effect, the base chance to apply those debuffs, because if they're low, like Sitri mentioned earlier, in High Memory of Chaos, enemies are going to have really high effect resist chance. So even if you're building a ton of effect hit rate, you're still only going to end up hitting Silver Wolf's debuffs around half of the time if she doesn't have super high chance, which that would be really bad, especially when her entire kit and her light cone and everything is based around landing debuffs. So another thing that I'm a little worried about is it seems like outside of her technique, she's completely single target, which can definitely prove to be an issue, especially if you're not landing those debuffs, for example, if she doesn't have insane chance to hit. So those are the two kind of things that I'm mainly worried about. It's basically what will kind of make or break her as either just, a good usable unit versus like a really, really good broken unit. And some other things, she's quantum obviously, so that's still good, even though most of her stuff is just single target, so it's not as good as, something like Chinchue for breaking specifically, but just being quantum alone is already good because quantum break is so good. And I think that the thing that I'm interested in her about right now that we might not be able to kind of see into fruition upon her release is mono teams, especially stuff like, mono quantum with Zila.
Oh my god.
But the problem is we can't really kind of even start TCing those or thinking about those because we just don't have enough defensive characters for every element. For example, if you wanted to make mono quantum, well, you can't really because there's only quantum
3
healer. Yeah, and because it's random, like the debuff chance, it could just land if you bring Bailu or Natasha, for example, it could just land on their element instead, and then suddenly your damage is extremely nerfed, right? And a 25% chance, I wouldn't want to gamble with all of my damage being on a 25% chance, but yeah. So that's my kind of thoughts on Silverwolf. I think she has the potential to be really good. I need to see her actual kit official numbers because I'm worried that if she doesn't have really high like effect hit like base chance numbers, then she's going to be more of like a kind of just a good unit. You can use her. Debuffs are always good, but she's not going to be like broken where you can just toss her anywhere and she'll just immediately destroy everything. She's definitely like she won't be a must pull or anything.
I like to think Silverwolf is really good future proof, mostly because like towards the future we're going to get more characters in various elements and various roles. More versatility out there in the roster, the more things you can play around with Silverwolf at the helm.
Yeah, definitely potentially, yeah. And so I guess like my overall verdict for this, like this specific banner is, I think it is still just a good banner. I don't think either banner is necessarily bad, especially for people who are like free to play and they might not have Dunhung, Astus or Vol, their E2s or some of their other Eidolons, not constellations. And I think it's just the main thing I'm worried about is actually, Silverwolf's actual numbers and
yeah.
if she actually has the base chance to be like to have universal utility.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, now we can move on to Luocha's.
All right, Luocha's banner, as you can see, will be Luocha as a 5-star, and we have Pela, Qingchui, and Yukong. For pronunciation's ease sake, you guys can call Qingchui as QQ, just for the sake of not having.
Yeah, I switch in and out of calling.
That's fair
for
enough.
Qingchui or
Anyways,
QQ, but
go ahead.
Yeah, so for the Luocha banner, again, start with the 4 stars. Overall, I think the 4 stars, they're not as great value for free-to-play, and I'll kind of detail why later, like specifically pulling on the Luocha banner. But they're still solid, like they're definitely not bad. If you don't have Pela, Pela is just at a base level good, she provides debuffs. For example, if you don't pull on Silverwolf and you pull on Luocha and you get Pela, like you have a debuffer there. Maybe not quite as good as Silverwolf, but she still has AoE, defense shred. She can still remove buffs, which can be really important against certain enemies that can have their buffs removed. And she just provides good ice coverage and some, like kind of sub DPS capabilities. The only downside, I would say, is that a lot of her Eidolons are kind of more focused on her personal damage, which makes it so that they're not very high value at this point in the game, especially if you're free to play. So if you already have her, it's not necessarily something that you're making a priority to get versus maybe something else. And so yeah, that's Pela. I can talk about Qingchui now. Yeah. So Qingchui is an interesting case because she at a base level provides pretty good quantum AoE coverage. But where she really begins to shine is with her E4 and her E6. And while that may sound a little daunting to get to from like pulling on a banner at first, you have to also keep in mind just from clearing not Forgotten Hole, just from, wait, is it Forgotten Hole? Or is it from Herta's Simulated Universe?
Herta gives you...
from Simulated Universe, you already get E2, so you're starting... Or do you just get E0?
You just get E0.
King
No,
You get
do not
E0 from Forgotten Hole.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
Sorry, it is Forgotten Hole. That is my B.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, you got me confused with Herta. Okay. But yeah, so never mind that. So it is kind of, I guess, hard to pull for her value constellations then, because getting to E4 and E6 is going to be hard, especially if you don't have a lot of pulls saved up. You could get lucky, but it's going to be a little unlikely in that case. Her E2 is still really good. It provides a lot of energy generation. When I first read it, I thought it was not that great because you see 1 energy and it doesn't seem that great. But that's every time she draws a tile. It's not every time she uses skill, like I first misread it. So over, like, even if you're doing a just basic attack spam only build where you're not consuming any SP, you're still going to be basically generating 4 extra energy every, turn cycle, assuming that there's 3 actions happening before her, and potentially more, obviously, depending on how you have your speed built on your team. But her E4 and her E6 are what turn her into basically being able to be a really good damage carry choice versus just a quantum coverage choice. Her E4 basically lets her gain access to a chance of triggering an echo basic attack, basically, where it just copies the damage of her enhanced or just her normal basic attack, which is huge because that's basically doubling her main damage source, potentially doubling her main damage source. But yeah, so that kind of unlocks her to start actually doing a lot of damage, where she's actually starting to rival like other, like 5 stars like E0s and stuff like that, depending on the content, of course. And her E6 is obviously just very, very good, because normally her enhanced basic attacks do not generate any SP, but with E6 they do, meaning that you can afford to use skill more times, you can stack her buffs more times through using her skill, and you have more chances of actually triggering her E4. So yeah, basically for Qingque, she is very good once you have E4 and E6. She's definitely usable before then, but she doesn't really unlock a lot of her damage until then, meaning that if you're in a free-to-play, it's going to be something that you're not necessarily going to be expecting to get versus, like a E1 or a E2 for a different character. And for Yukong, there's not too much for me to say here, just because all we know right now is that she buffs attack and crit for the next 2 turns, and that does seem good. We just need to see numbers, obviously, to really get more of a handle on how good she is. Also, keeping in mind that I believe they did mention we do get a free copy in the upcoming patch after, right?
Yes, we do get a free Yukong in 1.2.
Yeah, Yukong in 1.2 we get a free one, so we don't know how good her Eidolons are. If they're bad, then you're already getting a free E0 Yukong in 1.2, so it's not necessarily something that you are looking to aim for on this banner. So yeah, overall it's kind of the 4 stars, they have the potential to be good, especially stuff like later Eidolons for QQ, and we'll have to see for Yukong, but it's definitely
One thing
not
I'm worried
as...
about with her is uptime. Since crit damage and crit rate buffs are very potent, it really depends on how they can balance the uptime on it. If the uptime is good, it's insanely good.
Yeah.
If it's bad,
Yeah. It
it's
just
not
depends,
gonna-
right?
yeah.
They stated in the live stream it's going to be for the next 2 turns, which, Hoyo, they might not be saying that the way that's intended to be in game, so we're just going to have to really wait and see once she comes out.
I also have a feeling one of her Eidolons might be extended that to 3.
Maybe. I mean, that
if it is, that's actually a really good life buff.
Yeah, but obviously she is also imaginary, and as they mentioned, she does have a talent that lets her basic attack apply 100% or it doubles the break that it's able to do, which could be potentially very good, especially because Imaginary is basically the best element to break with right now because it slows and gives a massive action delay as opposed to just the normal 25%. So, and speaking of imaginary characters, that means I can move on to Luocha, who is, I think, just an amazing complete support package. He basically just provides everything that you're looking for from a support character in terms of like healing and just like utility. He's obviously imaginary, which is, like I said, just very, very good for kind of break utility and coverage. I think another big thing in terms of healing is he also cleanses enemy buffs. So he doesn't just heal, he also can actively stop enemies from potentially doing more damage. And it's an AoE debuff, or AoE buff cleanse from the enemy. And from what I've seen in the story quest, it seems to be in line with the cost of it, seems to be in line with the other healers. Like, it's pretty low, like it seems around like 100 or something, 90 or 100. So that's very good, being able to have access to, you know, buff removal from enemies while also, you know, interacting with the rest of his kit, which I can talk about now. So also another thing that I noticed in the story quest where he auto battles is that his Abyss Flower stacks were changed from 3, which they were in CBT, to only 2 now, which is a massive deal. Basically, whenever he does an action, he'll gain a stack of it. And when he has 2 stacks, he, you know, activates a field. You know, whether I guess when I say action, when he does skill or ultimate, and when he gets 2 stacks, he activates a field. It basically acts as Chi-Chi ult. It heals any allies that attack an enemy, and also heals the entire party by a smaller amount. So the biggest value from him is the fact that he is reactive cleansing and healing. So I don't know if people notice from the story quest, but when people get like lower health, it seems around like the 50% range, he will just automatically cast his skill without any SP cost. So that makes him a lot better than something like, for example, Natasha, where if someone is, you know, low health and they're about to die, but it's not Natasha's turn yet and you have no access to any healing from like her ult or skill, Luocha in that case would still be able to just automatically, you know, cast his skill and instantly heal them. So reactive healing is just a really big deal. The only other reactive healing we really have access to right now is something like Bailu Invigoration, which if you've tried it, it doesn't heal for that much.
It's just for mitigating as much damage as it could.
It's like a little bit, it basically acts as a little bit of damage mitigation versus actual healing, which is what Luocha can do. And in terms of break, this is also a big deal because Abundance characters so far, they can't do any break outside of their auto attacks, and it's just, you know, the base 1 unit or 30 units depending on how you look at it of break, which is not that great. But what Luocha has access to is an ult that actually damages and does break. So just from looking at it, I even saw in the live stream, it looks like it's 30 on basic attack and 60 on ult, meaning, and it's an AoE 60 on ult, so meaning that you have access to a lot more imaginary break from an Abundance unit, which is just something that's very, very good. And in terms of value, something that you should also keep in mind is that, at least from the drip marketing that we've seen, it doesn't look like we have another healer coming for a while, that we know of at least. Obviously that could change, but for right now of what we know, it seems like there's not going to be another healer for a while, making him have a lot more value. And again, even if you do have Bailu, I still think in a lot of situations you would prefer to use him, just because he provides a lot more additional utility outside of simply just healing like Bailu does. So for this banner overall, I think the 5-star is just really, really good. With the 4 stars, they're a little more lackluster compared to the Silverwolf 4 stars, especially if you aren't pulling a ton, if you're free to play, you know, if you can only get to, you know, 1 pity, or if you don't get lucky, it's unlikely you're going to get the most value out of the Luocha 4 stars, versus on the Silverwolf 4 stars, even just pulling a little bit, you are somewhat likely to get to E1, E2 on those characters.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think you can really go wrong with either banner. If you're just looking to kind of push MOC at this point, I think that Lucha probably provides a little more, especially for a lot of people that don't have Bailu. But at the end of the day, MOC right now at least is not everything. We're all kind of under-leveled, we're all under-geared, so I wouldn't recommend specifically forcing yourself to pull for a character that you don't necessarily like, just so that you can, get 1 or 2 floors higher in current MOC. Especially because, as the weeks go on, as we level up our Trailblazer level, we're going to get access to leveling up our characters to 80 eventually. We're going to be able to relic farm, and then at that point, you don't want to be stuck with a character that you don't actually enjoy. So, yeah, I would say I don't think either banner is necessarily a terrible move or a bad move. I prefer the Lucha banner a lot more just because I think Lucha is better in the current state, but at the same time, there's no account ruining move here, pulling on either of them.
It does come down to it depends on who you want, what kind of playstyle do you want at that point. Lucha it tends to be more pressing on the integral part of the gameplay. Meanwhile, Silverwolf is more it enables for a variety of plays where you can go in a style that you usually won't go on certain MOCs.
Currently, I would say immediate impact on your comms, definitely Locha.
Oh,
He has
yeah.
a much higher floor with way less investment. Silverwolf is still a question mark for us, but she does have potential. But again, very heavy emphasis on the word potential. She could unlock some very interesting comms. The fact that she makes a lot of mono element comms possible is something to keep in mind. Also, remember that as I've stated many times, but I'll say it again, healers is very, very important in this game.
Yeah.
One healer can cover your defense better than 2 shielders, even 2 tanks, 2 preservations. It opens up a lot of more high damage comms, not having to run a shielder. And so
I mean, beyond that, also hi. Beyond that,
Eris?
you're not getting to Mach 10 without 2 healers. If all you have is Natasha right now, you need a healer. That's the straight suite of it.
With a lot of luck and some very specific strategy, I can clear Mach 5 without healer, but Mach 6 is a different beast. Mach 6,
Yeah.
it's become a battle of attrition if you don't have 2 healers. I do not think it's possible.
But again, I think a lot of that does come down to us being underinvested.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, for my point, I think if you don't like Locha, you don't need to pull for him, even if it would result in you doing better in MOC right at this moment. Just because over time, you're going to level up your characters, you're going to get other characters.
Once you have 2 healers, rolling another healer is not as much of an impact as rolling a new better DPS or a new support or a new debuffer. But if you just have 1 healer, then of course rolling for another healer is a huge impact. It also really depends on between now to when his banner comes out, we have any more information of is another healer coming and how soon did he come out. That can shift his pull value quite heavily. If I top out right now without considering any future possibilities, I would say he's very, very high value currently.
But the value can always change later down the line. But it's a future that we cannot foresee, nor anyone can foresee. But so we can only say these things in a contemporary situation.
On the topic of healers, I've seen a lot of people toss around the mono team idea for Silverwolf, but I will say this right now: if you don't have a healer for that team, it's not going to work. The only ones that seem sort of functional right now is literally just lightning and physical, and it's mostly lightning that you'd be looking at with the break effect
Bailu,
symbol.
Qingyun, Qingyuan. That's the comp. Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, no.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, no healers, which is big sad. But I like to see if I can make the fire one work. But I already know it's not going to be as effective as electric will. But me like challenging.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyways, if anyone has any questions in the
Right.
chat, also feel free to drop them.
Yeah. So anything else we have to say for our side? Because I was gonna say from here on, if you guys have nothing else to say, we're gonna pull up like a Q&A for the boys.
Yeah, I mean, I basically did my tidbits already.
Anyone else needs to say something before we go to Q&A?
Sim pretty much covered everything. He did a good job covering it all.
Yeah.
So not
Okay.
much from me.
All right, Chad. We're gonna have a little bit of a moment for a quick Q&A. I also remember like seeing some questions in like our Twitter and like other main servers inside. I'll try to find those real quick. But if anyone else has in this chat currently have any questions regarding like some of the like tidbits about the 4-star characters within the banner, 5 stars, or any just star rail in general, because we do have like a crap ton of the aircrafters in the room right now, so this is a really good chance for you guys to actually get through it. I do. Well, what are Silver Wolf 4 stars? Okay, the Silver Wolf 4 stars are Serval, Asta, and Dan Hung.
Is Quid Pro Quo that good even on low impulse? Yes. It's good because healers do not need a really strong light cone to overperform. A lot of the times what happens is you could very easily overheal on one single target, and usually just one burst healing, depends on how much SP you lose, is enough. Healing is not like shooting where you can just stack as many as you want. There's a cap, your max HP. And a lot of healers, even without outgoing healing boost on their light cones, they did a fair job of just keeping you alive in general. So anything that brings a more offensive utility is good, which Quid Pro Quo does.
Okay. Next question we have. I'm just gonna spell out the questions here so you guys don't just pop up with the answers. Another person, Kindy, asks, how important is Dispel in this game?
Boss dependent. Some boss very important, like Ice Out of Space. It's a boss where once it goes into its buff state, it does an AoE attack that can freeze 1 to 2 of your teammates per turn, and that is very annoying, especially if it freezes your healer. Because once he freezes your healer, he can pretty much one-shot the rest of your teammates. So Dispel is boss dependent, but on some boss, it's pretty much make or break.
Okay. Sin, you might want to answer this next question. I don't know if anyone asked this before, but if you do have Bailu, is Locha worth considering?
Yeah, so this comes up a lot. I think what's been parroted a lot is like people who have 2 healers already in the form of Natasha and Bailu saying, oh, it's bad pull value if you go for a 3rd healer, which I don't agree with, simply because I don't look at Locha as just a healer. I look at him as a general support unit, because he can remove buffs from enemies, which so far we only have on Pela, and I guess on the Hunt Battle Pass Light Cone, but hopefully no one is choosing that one. Anyways, but yeah, so he just provides a lot more additional utility. Like, he's the only abundance that we have so far that can actually do more break than just with auto attack, because his ult does damage and is an AoE. So I don't at all think that he is a bad pull just because you already have Bailu. And it really just comes down to, do you like him? Obviously, but also, what are you looking for? Like, what is your teams missing? Do you find yourself, missing like bigger chunk heals? Like, is it usually just one character that's dying first, and it's not that you need Bailu's AoE heal, but you need like a specific, reactive heal, which is what Locha offers. When someone drops to low health, he'll just automatically, no matter if it's his turn or not, cast his skill on that character. There's conditions to re-up the cooldown on that, but it happens often enough where you can still keep a lot of your teammates, healed up, especially because he also has access to basically Chi-Chi ult, where once he uses his skill or ult, any of those combinations twice, he just basically has Chi-Chi ult, and when any character attacks an enemy, they will heal, and the rest of the team will heal a little as well. So yeah, I think his pull value in general doesn't change too much whether you have Bailu or not, just because he provides a lot more than the existing units that we have right now.
Okay.
Okay. Next question. Montebello asks, what is a general good percent effect hit rate to shoot for on Nihility characters?
It depends. Do you want like high uptime? Yeah, like Sitri explains this a lot, but it depends. Like, are you doing like defense down? Like what's the difference? Because there's a big difference between slow uptime and defense down. Citri, can you elaborate? I don't quite remember all the specifics.
Are you alive?
Wait,
is Citri dead?
I think he went AFK.
Okay, we'll come back to that question.
I mean, I can talk about that.
Okay, Reens can talk about it. Jesus Christ!
Okay,
all right,
Reens. Okay. Based.
So the big thing for uptime versus effect hit rate is how often you're trying to apply something and what your uptime you're looking for. So when we talk about things like slow, first thing is that any sort of debuffs on the boss only tick down when it's their actual turn. So if you're talking about slows, you just naturally have more turns to apply them. So someone like Wealth doesn't need as much effect hit rate as we say, like compared to other debuffers, say like Pella, where you want to have the defense down. And that's also just a matter of actually getting that first hit. It's really important. If you're doing, say, a debuffer like Pella, where you need to have the defense shred ASAP, or else pretty much your entire burst rotation suffers from it. For her, you want to get the max. So right now, enemies at level 80 are going to scale up to about, I believe, 100
to 55%.
Yeah, 55% resist. So to counteract that, you need the equal amount of. So that's going to be the full main stat. You're going to want the effect hit rate, and then a decent amount of subs, because you'll need like 5 subs to hit that.
I would say it's fairly unrealistic to assume that you can hit. Do not try to aim for, like, even after effect resistance, you hit 100% of the time. Investing like that, even if you can hit it very consistently, you miss out on a lot of defensive or speed stats that actually keep up the consistency and the survivability of your teammates. What I recommend to people is try to assume enemy have around 40% effect resistance. And then see if you want to hit your 100% base chance 80% of the time or 90% of the time. And then just use that goalpost to decide if you want 40 to 50% effect hit rate. That is a much more reasonable range you can hit while still building speed, which debuffers really want, so they can keep a consistent buff up time, and you can still build defensive stat like HP, which keeps them alive.
Okay.
You can also be Echo Monster and just hit all the effect hit rate on your artifacts anyway.
Anyways. Next question. This one is actually really fast to answer. Any alternatives to event Light Cone for Silverwolf, and followed by R1 Sleep Like the Dead versus R5 Cruising in the Stellar Sea for Zila? I'm pretty sure I know the answer to the second question.
So any alternate event Light Cone for Silverwolf. If you do not want to get use event Light Cone on Silverwolf, I think it's good. You should use it. Resolution Light Cone is a really good one because it gives you an additional 12% defense reduction, and you should already build effect hit rate on her anyways. So it gives you more debuffs. That is a good one to build.
This one.
Yeah, the Sampo Gotcha Light Cone is also fine for her because it gives effect hit rate and a good amount of it too. But the only thing is, 20 at S1, which is pretty good. You don't really get any benefit from the DOT increase, but it's still an alternative. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if you for some reason don't want to use the event light cone or can't get it or something, yeah, you'd be fine just using anything basically with an effect hit rate.
And then you guys, R1 Sleep Like the Dead or R5 Cruising in the Stouter Sea for Zila.
Cruising in the Stouter Sea.
Yeah, no
100%.
shot. No
It's
shot,
boat.
bro.
It's
Boat is too good. Anyway.
Cruising in the Stouter Sea is a very good. It's a very good general cone too. All hunt characters can use it.
All right. This next question is more integral based, so we're gonna come back to it after because the next question is really easy to answer. So, Drew Animates asks Kafka boss best debuff removal pair on auto. Isn't there only two? There's only two debuff?
It's
There's-
Nat and Marge, I think.
Well,
And Bronya, I guess.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what the best pair is.
Okay.
And 10 blessings. Yes.
Abundance, go on autoplay, go eat dinner.
Yeah.
That's true.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. If you're trying to fight
Just play
Kafka,
Abundance,
yeah,
yeah.
just play Abundance. Abundance solves like 130% of the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You don't need it.
Okay.
Trust us.
Okay, this is a more conceptualized question. Step on me, Welt. As
I agree.
Okay.
100% agree.
okay, you say healers are very valuable in this game. For people with limited experience in turn-based or similar types of games to this one, why is that the case?
I assume this question is directed at me because I was the one selling healers.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I would not discuss it in other games because other games have different mechanics how that damage works. I'll just talk about Star Rail. Star Rail, there's a taunt system. If you don't know, there's an aggro value system that tells you which character gets hit. However, it is a percentage chance. So even if you have really high aggro value on one character, once you actually space it out, the chances that you're the 3 other characters that can be hit is actually very high. It's not that surefire as you think. In 5 attacks, 1 or 2 might hit those 3 other characters, and there's also splash attack, things like that. With shielders, they have taunt, which helps. However, taunt are usually very SP expensive. And second, so currently, if you look at the shielder roster, Fire Trailblazer shields your entire team, but the value per shield is not high. March shields one character, however, she also they could also get hit because increased taunt from her skill, and SB expensive. Shepard, very reliant on his ult activating for your team to have shields. So, if you look at it like that, when you use shields, you either have to spend a lot of SP to cover a lot of situations, or you have to be very conscious of who you're shielding, and even with taunt, you could get unlucky and someone gets hit. And in this game, keeping 4 characters alive is very important. If one's dead, your rotation and your damage slow down significantly. Healers, they are more reactive, so you can choose who to heal when they need it. Secondly, because they are reactive, you do not have to preemptively spend SP that could be wasted, and you could just save it until someone needs the healing, right? And that's pretty much it. Because they are reactive, they are very SP positive in the sense that while no one's need healing, they can just normal attack and do damage, and that's generate SP for the other members to do damage. Well, with shielders, you constantly have to keep your defensive up. That's basically how I see it.
All right. Next question. Which stat increases damage over time damage? Can DOT crit?
Oh boy, which one? That's different answers.
Which stats increase dot damage? So there are 2 types of dots. There's prick effect dot, and there's normal dot. Prick effect dot only applies when you break something with electro, wind, and fire. these stats gets increased by your damage percent, your attack. They cannot crit, so crit is useless. Oh wait, my bad. I'm talking about break effects, right? Sorry. Scratch that. Break effect is only increases by your break effect percent and the enemy defense, which can be decreased by defense reduction, which increase that dot damage. There's no more dot damage that some characters have, like Himeko on her trace, Asta on her trace, Hook on her ult or her skill, I don't remember. And those cannot crit as well, but they are increased by your attack, damage percent, and they are also affected by defense. Sorry, I got messed up. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so Kaz
Dot does affect by 5%. Sorry. True animates as Hook dot gets affected by 5 damage percent.
Okay. Kazakh7 asks, what can I do with E6 Pela?
I mean, just build her as a sub DPS, I guess. Like,
Hello with even more energy, yeah. It's like, play about it.
I mean, her E6 just does extra damage basically when she attacks, or when she attacks a debuffed enemy in particular, which, again, Pela's cons are not exactly super high value. It's not something you complain about getting necessarily, but it's not something where like it immediately provides like a lot of value.
Potatosaurus, by the way, I love that name. Speaking in terms of just meta, is Silverwolf worth pulling as free to play? I keep hearing people say she is bait and not worth it right now.
Free to
I
play.
would hold off until we get actual numbers.
Yep.
Pardon?
I would hold off for extra numbers.
Mhm.
Also, the main thing is her kit screams to me that she allows a lot of different comps to function, or like she can build a lot of interesting comps with her. But building new comps require new characters. And as for your play, even if you have Silverwolf, you might not be able to roll the multiple different pieces that might build the best comp for her.
But I don't think she's bait.
She will serve you well. Bait assumes that she's bad, but we don't know yet.
Yeah.
The game is
Yeah, I
early
mean-
that like the word bait and not worth is a little too extreme to apply.
Yeah, I mean, either 5-star
He's
is
not telling.
either 5-star is not necessarily a bad pull, but just for Silverwolf in particular, a lot of her value kind of hinges on what her numbers actually come out to, especially the percent hit chance, base chance on all of her debuffs. If they're low, I would actually not recommend pulling her, but if they're high enough, then obviously she's still a good pull.
Since Quid Pro Quo.
Okay, so what can I? So next question. This is just gonna be very funny. Shortcat. What can I do with E13 Pela other than crying in bed? You can cry in the sofa. That's your other fortune you can do with E13 Pela. Actual Castaway asks, which 4-star characters have Eidolons worth getting?
Oh boy.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, that is a
I mean,
loaded
if
question.
you're talking, I mean, technically all of them. Like, but if you're talking about the specific banners, I already kind of went over this in a long spiel. But basically, the ones you're looking for are Denhung E2, Asta E2 and E4, Serval E2. Pela doesn't really care too much. QQ E4 and E6, and we obviously don't know Yukong's Eidolons yet, so I can't say.
Hidden.
That's a general rule, though. Just-
Yeah,
You should never be pulling for 4-star Eidolons. Like,
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
That's
not,
just
not
the
like
general
specifically. Yeah.
and they will legit at some point. It will be more expensive for you to get a C6 specific 4-star than a C6 5-star. Like, I'm telling you this from
Yeah.
experience.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Oh god.
Hidden AI. Sorry. Wow. I called him AI. Sorry. Hidden IA. My bad. Since Quid Pro Quo is deemed good even on Superimposition 1, but then you don't actually want overheal on your healer, else you're just wasting SP/turn. Like, wouldn't Bailu/Nat Lycone would be better to use, assuming you own both?
No, because you heal enough. So I'm talking about overheal in the sense that you heal over the HP cap. You don't want to heal too late where your character is like getting hit twice and they're like 30% of their HP, because if you get a delay, you get CC, high chance you're dead and you have to restart the run again, right? So the ideal range you want to heal them is when they're around 50-60% HP. At that range, take just building HP and having outgoing healing boost on your cloak gives you enough healing on, like, I'm talking with just Natasha, by the way, not someone who has a higher HP output than her, like Bailu. Just Natasha heals you enough to keep you alive, and her ult also heals your entire team. So most of the time, if you don't need to, with the frequency of healing you do, you don't need to take a dedicated outgoing healing like code. That's what I mean.
Yeah, so the basic way to answer that is just it's better to have occasional benefit from quid pro quo versus never getting any like extra benefit from like Bailu or Natasha Lycone.
Okay. That's the end thing. Montebello, we don't know that yet. We're gonna have to stick around for that one. Spark asks, does multiple defense reduction stack?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Oh, right. Sorry, I thought that was gonna be quite a longer answer.
No, I mean it's a yes or no question.
True.
Yes.
Also, this might be a very dumb question, but what does resistance penalty? Oh, no, sorry, not penalty.
Penetration.
Sorry, pen stands for a lot of words. Okay, penetration is the one here.
Okay, so there is a damage multiplier called resistance, elemental resistance, that the enemy has. The 3 elements that they're weak to, or 2, they always have 0% elemental resistance, which means that you do full damage to them. Other end, if they're not weak to those certain elements, they either have anywhere between 20 to 60% resistance to a non-weak element. When they have 20%, it means you have to they take 20% less damage from whatever element they have that resistance is. So, for example, if I do 1000 damage and an enemy has 20% resistance to whatever element I only do 800% damage. And this can count towards the negatives too. So if an enemy has 0% resistance, and I have 20% penetration, I do 20% more damage to them now. So I do 1200 instead of just 1000. That's basically it.
So with the upcoming banner revealed, how does that reflect upon the current banner?
What are the 4 stars right now on Jingwen?
Ting Yun, Su Shang, and March.
Yeah, so what I've kind of been telling people is if you're free to play, at least, like if in the sense that you're not going to be able to get every 5-star that you want, especially kind of early on, if you already have one of the DPS units from 1.0, I would highly recommend just saving for one of the support units from 1.1, just because that's kind of like the most, like the route that makes the most sense, just because we have a lot of DPS units right now. What we don't have is a lot of additional utility on the side to kind of support those DPS units. Oh, and look who pulled up. It's Echo Monster.
Of course. Oh my god, why is that guy talking? Alright. Next question. What Lycones are best to prioritize from Forgotten Hall shop, both in terms of purchase order for Refine 1 and future Refine priority?
Sorry. What icons are best to prioritize from Forgotten Hall shop?
Hold on, let me tell you the Lycones real quick.
The entire list? Yeah.
So the Lycone manifest in the Forgotten Hall is Quid Pro Quo, Fermata, We Are Wildfire. I can already tell you We Are Wildfire is not that great. River Flows in Spring, Past and Future, Wolf Walk Time, and The Seriousness of Breakfast.
I did
Serious
do a
of
write-up about
breakfast.
this, and
Yeah.
but so if you have Battle Pass, this really hinges on what you get on Battle Pass. Actually, you have Battle Pass, and you do and you should take to Another Peaceful Day, which is the best 4-star erudition Lyco. Then you do not really have to take Seriousness of Breakfast. And so, can you go? Yeah.
So this
Peaceful
is
Day.
yeah, this is
That one.
Peaceful Day.
This is the best 4-star erudition Lyco that you should get from the Battle Pass, by the way. So if you get this, you do not really have to go for Serious Breakfast unless you build multiple erudition characters. Can you go back to the Forgotten Hall one now? Thank you.
Do you want to enter the Forgotten Hall?
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
Seriousness of Breakfast. Do you want to see that?
Yeah.
Cool.
And if not, get Seriousness of Breakfast, second best.
Mhm.
After that,
Past and Future.
Yeah, Wolf Walk Time is also fine for like stuff
Wolf
like
Walk Time only if you play Hook, by the way. If you
Yeah,
play Hook,
yeah.
get Wolf Walk Time. If you play Clara, Fall of the Eon from Simulated Universe is better. Wolf Walk Time is Hook specific.
Good pro.
River Flow Spring would be my second choice. I would hold on Quid Pro Quo. I would actually roll Frozen Spring if you have, because you need to build 200 characters.
You also get a free copy of Quid Pro Quo, I'm pretty sure, from
Yep.
at some point. So
Yes.
it's not something that's like super high value to superimpose right away, right?
River Frozen Spring scales very well with superimposition, so get another copy to superimpose it or use it on the second character. Very good as well. If you have Bronya, prioritize Past and Future.
Oh.
Unless you roll her Lyco.
I'm gonna get that Lycone soon.
Yep. Wheel Wildfire is not that great, but if you don't really have other options, it's a good one to grab as well. Formata, not that good right now.
Fermata can probably make use of it, but at this current moment in time, no.
Not that good.
Yeah, no. It is kind of bad. Which sucks because it has Kafka in it. Not just any Kafka, naked Kafka on a bathtub Kafka. Not even for sample. If you're using sample, you want to use sample's one.
Yeah, but I think this is still a fine alternative for Sampo,
Yeah.
just because the damage percent still applies to his DOT. So it's definitely not a bad free-to-play option, just because his light cone is gacha, so...
Mm-hmm. She could.
Yeah, someone could use it as a...
Alright. Any other questions, chat? Seems like we're run out of the questions right now, so we're gonna do a last-minute roundup of any questions. If there are none, then I think we would be...
I see one question I can answer, and then I'm gonna go to bed because it is nearly 1:30 a.m. for me.
Wait, which one? I don't see it.
Okay, so thirsty for more daddy. I can't believe I just said that. For Clara, is it worth changing to her best in slot light cone from the herder shop? Light cone mine's already... No.
Oh,
No,
right.
her... In most cases, the herder shop one actually outperforms her signature, so... Yeah. You don't need to spend...
Good.
You don't need to spend 600 star glitter or whatever it's called in this game on Clara's signature. You can just stick with S5 once you get there. Follow the Aeon.
Carve the moon, weave the clouds is the
Yeah,
best battle pass
and-
light cone. Don't let anyone tell you different.
And with that, I go to bed. Good night, everyone.
Yeah,
Good
Thanks
night.
for having me.
Alright.
Good night.
Good night.
Alright, I think that will be the end of the stream and the recording session. I will be literally sending this VOD to Oh, do we still have the master file? Do we have the things where I can just send a Google link or something like that? We'll talk that when we later. This will be out on YouTube most likely. So if you guys do want to go back to the questions that was answered, but you don't remember what it was, and you want to learn the analysis of the banners of the 1.1 content, you can go check the YouTube as soon as we are able to get it out. Other than that, I think that was great. I wasn't supposed to stream today, but now that I've done, I'm ready to go back to bed and take a good long nap.
Okay.
All right, chat. It was okay. Before we end, it was an honor being with you all. Of course, I know we talk a lot together, anyways, every day. But like having you guys here with me is always warms me heart. So this was Eris. Eris is deafened, so I don't care. Mono, it was here. Reens.
Yep.
Okay, Reens is not
Hello,
responding.
hello?
Yeah, there we go. There we go. That was also Reens.
That's
We
a very good
thank you,
time.
Sitri.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And Sin, who literally went to bed. Good props to him as well. And this has been KQM Official, and we will go live tomorrow actually because we have another podcast, GITCG podcast, but that's for later. All right.
These guys,
Okay.
see you then.
Peace, guys.
Bye.
Yeah.
Good chat. Have a good one.